Since the early 80s, Electronic Arts conquered the video game industry. The American powerhouse built its name all around the world for producing some of the best, beloved, and groundbreaking video games. Just to mention a few, they're the studio behind the legendary franchises FIFA, The Sims series, Battlefield, and John Madden's NFL. But the story behind EA's success is also one of the darkest pages in American corporate history. For over 30 years, EA has been involved in a series of scandals and misconducts that stained its reputation. Aggressive business strategies, employees' exploitation, repeated hostile takeovers. EA seems to be the black swan of capitalism. But how can a company responsible for making video games be marked by the press as the evil empire and the most hated company in America? To answer this, I decided to open EA's black book and investigate. Nowadays, the video game industry is one of the fastest growing sectors in the world. While analysts predict that its market might reach $200 billion in annual spending by 2023, EA is still strongly pursuing a plan for its expansion. With a net worth of almost $40 billion, the California-based publisher and developer of Video Dreams crushed and annihilated many rivals on its way to the top. But how was this ruthless corporate culture born? Let's turn the clock back to 1978 and look at Trip Hawkins, a bright young man from Pasadena, California, that just a few years later will be the founder of EA. Trip Hawkins was one of Apple's first 50 employees. As a little kid, he already showed artistic and entrepreneurial inclinations, admittedly inspired by his parents, who were interested in music, paintings, but also electronics. Already at a young age, Hawkins was an introvert who didn't have many friends, and who was socially frustrated by the fact that many of his friends would not engage in table or card games, but rather watch the TV for entertainment. For this reason, he went to Harvard to study strategy and applied game theory and get an MBA, with the goal of founding his own innovative video game company in the future. After landing at Apple in 1978, he would soon become the director of strategy and marketing and worked closely with Steve Jobs. During an interview, Hawkins revealed that Jobs had an enormous influence on him. While charismatic, visionary, and encouraging with his creative employees, Steve Jobs also had bad habits, some of which Hawkins admitted having picked up himself. According to him, Jobs was occasionally temperamental, competitive with his rivals, and cruel with the employees that he deemed less talented. The two respected each other, but Jobs wasn't interested in developing a video game branch of Apple, and so Hawkins left Apple to start his own company. He met with Don Valentine, the legendary venture capitalist, who in many ways literally made the Silicon Valley what it is today by investing in companies such as Apple, Atari, Google, and YouTube before anyone else did. Don Valentine saw a potential in Hawkins and decided to finance him. And that's how the company was created in 1982, with the original name Amazon Software, soon to be changed, and with a futuristic way of mixing art and technology. And that's also when EA's controversial history of wars begins. On their way to building an empire at Electronic Arts, they soon realized that the video game niche was not a niche anymore, and that many new, strong players were joining the pitch. So they decided to toughen up. Their strategy was based on a simple concept of IP law. It doesn't matter who created the game, what matters is who owns the IP license. Because who owns the IP has every right to publish the game and make profits from it. So what if someone makes a better game? Then buy them off and make it under your own name. And what if it's not profitable and you need to kill them? So be it. That's how many companies ended up in the graveyard of video game developers. So, when the developer Origin Systems caught the eye of EA in 1992, they had their first victim. Origin is the name behind the series Ultima, a fantasy and science fiction game that made history for the role-playing genre in the decades to come. Well, right after the acquisition, because of the deadlines and pressure imposed by EA, the quality of the Ultima games decreased rapidly, until EA chose to shut it down forever. Again, in 1997, a small developer called Maxis created a game that years later would have become a goldmine in the gaming industry, The Sims. That's when EA stepped in, acquired Maxis, snatched the IP, and years later dissolved the company. Nowadays, the Sims series is one of the main titles published by EA. Coincidence? In 1998, it was the turn of Westwood Studios. The successful company was the one behind the Command & Conquer saga. At the time, one of the most profitable games on the market. After taking over Westwood, EA secured the IP for Command & Conquer. However, as the games did not perform as expected, EA said goodbye to Westwood and put them to sleep. Needless to say, the IP for Command & Conquer is still in EA's hands today. In 2003, through a hostile takeover that generated a lot of press attention, they purchased a considerable stake in Ubisoft Entertainment, the development studio that makes Assassin's Creed and Far Cry. But EA really set a new standard when they bought and subsequently disintegrated Pandemic Studios in 2009. Pandemic Studios was the big brand behind the Star Wars Battlefront series, a shooter game that takes place in the mysterious Jedi Galaxy. As the series failed to hit the sales target, Electronic Arts dissolved Pandemic Studios, firing over 200 employees, and started producing the game under its own name. This caused a real outrage for fans from all over the world. And now, it's easier to understand why it's been marked as the evil empire. These are just a few examples, because EA over the years made more than 45 acquisitions, many of which led to the extinction of the purchased company, and in many cases, to the death of the game itself. In fact, while many game franchises were permanently ruined, like Need for Speed, Dead Space, and Battlefield, many other titles will probably never see life again. This is the case for the Fantasy Ultima series, Syndicate, the Skate series, the strategy masterpiece Command & Conquer, and the first God game ever, Populous. And the worst part is that these were not just a source of entertainment, but a big component of popular culture. So, what's EA's motivation? According to Joe Bostic, the former co-founder of Westwood Studios, who's been one of the first victims of EA, at Electronic Arts, there's a cruel live-or-die mentality for which every game has to be a hit. And if a game doesn't make money, well, there's no reason for it to exist. And the same goes for the company who made it. In an interview, Trip Hawkins himself admitted that the company that once blended arts with entertainment, making some of the most beautiful game covers and stories of all time, now turned into a machine that works around operational efficiency and money-making. The problem is that this greedy system produced many games that are flawed by poor quality, countless bugs, and simply lack of imagination. But the effects are also social, because EA is a nightmare for its employees too. The company was in the midst of a public outcry when the wife of an EA developer revealed publicly that the current mandatory working hours are 9 a.m. to 10 p.m. 7 days a week, for a total of around 100 working hours per week. I know, but that's not the worst part. Because this revelation uncovered a dark underworld of unpaid hours thanks to the so-called crunch time mechanism. In fact, a crunch is a period of work that leads up to the completion of a specific game, and that's usually unpaid. EA exploited this mechanism, forcing cruel working hours on all their developers all the time. This allowed the company to make huge margin profits, and that's why it was voted the worst company in America for 2 years in a row. And it's no wonder why being bought by EA is not a happy fate. At this point, a question comes naturally. Why do video game studios allow themselves to be purchased by EA? While their practices seem to have improved in recent years, both towards their games, fans, and employees, EA is not planning to stop. As we speak, they made 4 different acquisitions just in 2021, the last one being the UK developer Playdemic, for $1.4 billion in cash. And that's the truth of why companies sell to EA. They simply have a firing power that no one else has. Similarly, the unfortunate acquisition of BioWare and Pandemic Studios in 2007 occurred for an astounding sum of $860 million. But it's not only about dollar bills. In fact, many companies decide to sell also because EA possesses the best infrastructures and support, from scale and software capability to connection to Hollywood movie studios, which is an important branch of their business. Perhaps it's true that the company is trying to set itself straight, as it seems to be. But if the remarks of its founder, Trip Hawkins, are true, and the company really privileges money-making over anything else, then perhaps its dark days are not over yet.